All right guys, in today's video, I'm gonna show you the drill that I use to be able to consistently shoot in the 70s that will work the same for you. I use this with myself and a lot of my students. So if you're someone who wants to shoot in the 70s, even if you're someone looking to get into the low or mid 80s, a really effective drill you have to do. Come on back, we'll start in a moment. I'll show you how to do it. All right guys, so the drill that I use to consistently shoot into the 70s, there's three little micro parts to it that I'm gonna show you in a minute. But the macro thing that I use for myself and all of our students is to have an idea of the ball flight pattern that we're trying to create. Now, stick with me here for a minute. Let's say you think about all the golfers that you know that shoot in the 70s or shoot around par, and think about what their ball flight normally looks like. Okay, you got that? Now, take a moment and think about players who shoot the 80s, 90s, 100, above 100. Now think about their ball flight pattern. Right? If you're like me, you can notice a pretty big difference and a correlation between those two. The players who shoot the 70s and around par hit the ball solid and tend to have more of a strong draw bias. Okay? Players that shoot in the, let's say, upper 80s, 90s, 100 and plus tend to have what? Inconsistent contact, so not compressed. And they tend to have more of a weak fade pattern. Now, sometimes you square the face and hit pulls, but basically it's a weak fade pattern. We see about 1,000 swings every month. I've been coaching for 16 years, and it pretty much holds true across the board. Now, that means if you're someone who's in the 90s and you want to get into the 70s or low 80s, it would serve to reason that you should learn how to hit the strong draw. And I'm talking about a draw that happens automatically once you put the correct pieces in. But you should be thinking about that as your ball pattern. And there's three things that I did that allowed me to hit that draw on command every single shot that I trained in my swing that I'm going to show you today. And I use this with my players all the time. I've probably given a different, slightly different variation of the same lesson like 5 to 10 times every single week. So odds are this is going to be very fruitful for you as well. Three things for the draw. Now, before we get to those three little micro things, we know to hit a compressed strong draw. Okay, imagine a ball flight. Let's put a ball flight on the screen, a ball that starts right at the target and starts to curve back towards the target line. Okay, that's the shot pattern we want. To do that, we need to learn how to close the club face to the path, and we need to learn how to get the path a little bit from inside. Close the club face and get the path from inside. Now, when I say close the club face, if I hold a club up here in front, all we're really referencing is I want to get the club face close to the shaft, which means the toe should start to get slightly in front of the heel. Right? That very clearly would be a closed club face. If I get the toe behind the heel, that would be too open. So this is closing the club face, okay? Now there's three parts to that motion. One is with the grip, two is with the wrist angles on the way back, and three is with the arm rotation on the way through. And each one you do of those three, the less you have to force the other ones. What do I mean? Starting with the setup position. If you're someone who shoots higher than the 70s consistently, odds are your hands aren't on the club correctly. Okay, this is another thing I'm saying all the time to the players. Not just the strength of your grip, but also literally where your hands are, okay? I find myself changing where the hands are on the club for probably 70 to 80% of players I work with. So where do we want? We want a slightly stronger than neutral grip. So that would mean if we did the V's up my index finger and thumb here, and my right hand and left hand, those should go kind of right collarbone or right shoulder. And why we do that is so if I start in this slightly extended strong position and I flatten my wrist out during the backswing, notice what happens to the club. What does it do? It closes. So here's my setup. I want a little bit of extension there. The face is pretty square. And then as soon as I flatten my left wrist, the club face closes. And that's what we're trying to do during the backswing. If you start with it strong enough, if you flatten your left wrist, you've closed the club face, which is part one. Now, since we introduced the straight stick not long ago, I've been using this for the past about year. Every player I work with who struggles with the grip, I have them in this straight stick mold. Again, like we showed in previous videos, you can move where your grip is. I go strong plus, and your hands fit in there perfectly. Okay, so if you want to grab a straight stick, we're going to put the link down below. If you struggle with your grip, literally you can do this every single time you practice and make sure your hands are on correctly. I highly, highly recommend it. Okay, not just because of the mold, but you can also move the mold based on your grip. Okay, so grip being number one. Now when we go back, I said the left wrist flattening closes the club face. And so what I want you to think, I've got my grip on there strong enough, V's to the right shoulder, And now on the way back, I'm flattening my wrist angles. Okay, notice if I take this club here and hold the club up in front like this, watch my wrist and your wrist when you get the toe in front of the heel. Look at what my wrists do. If I say close the club face, my left wrist flattens and my right wrist bends back. And that's what I'm doing during the whole takeaway to the top, to get to the point where the club face is close to the shaft. That means it's on the right side of the shaft, okay? We said we want a strong draw. Start right, curve left. What do we need for a strong draw? A face that's close to the path. How do we get the face close to the path? Start with the grip strong enough and then flatten the left wrist on the way back. Now, is that enough to create the draw in and of itself? Sometimes. But like a recent lesson I gave 2 days ago, sometimes that's not enough. Okay, he had the grip good. We got the wrist angles good on the way back. But then on the way through, he was really trying to hold the club off and never releasing it. And so we were hitting solid shots, but they went off to the right. This might be you. So we still need the third piece of the puzzle. Flatten the wrist on the way back, and then arm rotation on the way through. Arm rotation on the way through means this. I hold the club up again. How do I close it? Wrist angles on the way back. Wrist angles on the way back. But I can also close it via arm rotation. See, if I rotate my arms, it's right arm pronation, left arm supination, the club face also gets closed to the path. Now, I wouldn't do that on the way back. On the way back, I do wrist angles to close it. And then on the way down, I have a light amount of arm rotation. How much arm rotation? I would loosely get arm rotation to the point where the toe's right on top of the heel in the follow through, or even angled down slightly. Remember, we're trying to go strong draw. I'm assuming your issue is a weak fade. You don't hit the ball as solid as you want, you don't hit it as far as you want, and it tends to fade to the right. Especially, I see this pattern a lot with the shorter clubs. You might be able to kind of time it up well and you hit some strong pulls, but man, as the clubs get longer and longer and longer, it's harder to close the face and the ball starts fading more to the right. If that's you, you need those pieces. So grip at setup, wrist angles on the way back, arm rotation on the way through. If you did those three and learned how to hit a strong draw and did nothing else for the next 6, 12, 24 months, I guarantee your handicap would come down. You have an intention of hitting a slight draw on every single shot, and you just stack things in your swing that would create that. Okay, now if you had the eyes of an expert coach like me online at cogornogolf.com, that would help too, but even if not, and you just did these three things, your handicap is coming down. So grip on there, number one, and you'll notice here, I've got a start line stick out in front, right? A little noodle. So when you're practicing this, and I would do this in all my lessons, I want you to have a stick out here, 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 paces in front of you, and put a noodle or an object right just on the left half of your target line. This way, when you're hitting, you can see, okay, I've got to start the ball out to the right over there, and I have to have it curve left, okay? So grip is on there strong, V's over to the right. I'm doing my wrist angles on the way back, so I feel like I'm twisting the club face counterclockwise, twisting it closed, and then on the way down, I can still twist it closed in transition, but I'm going to continue to allow the arms to naturally rotate on the way through where the toe gets above or even in front of the heel, which again would be a face closure. If you overdid these, the ball would overdraw to the left a little bit. Perfectly good. Guess who struggles with a ball that overdraws to the left a little bit? Just about every player I've ever worked with who shoots in the 70s. Okay, you want that as your new problem. Okay, so setup, grip is strong, wrist angles on the way back, twist it closed, arm rotation on the way through. And there's a perfect strong, we call that a strong draw, which means I hit a 7-iron there, I compressed it, probably went 100, 180, 85 yards. The ball drew about 5 yards, okay? And it's predictable. I don't need to think about a million things in my swing. It's these 3 biggies. When you get these biggies in there and you have a strong draw, then you can come back and clean up some of the micro stuff. Most players that come see me have 10 swing thoughts and none of them are really that relevant to their issue. Okay, you gotta hit the biggies. Grip stronger, wrist angles on the way back, arm rotation through. And they're the same thing, probably about a 5-yard draw right on target. Now, if you're doing this and you're learning to close the club face and you're hooking some to the left, have no fear, that's okay. You're doing the correct thing. You're over closing the face to path. What you don't want to do is keep having the same problem. If you're doing this and you fade it to the right and you continue to fade it to the right, you haven't done it enough. You have to exaggerate more, hook it to the left. The start line stick, if you're doing this and the ball's starting left, curving left, that's better than your old problem, but still a problem. We want it to start right, curve left. How do I have it start right? Every time before I hit, I'm just gonna peek up to the right of this start line stick and just see a little bit of a window over there that I'm trying to get the ball launching to the right of. I would like you to do this where you don't aim right, you keep your aim square and learn how to do this in swing. So grip is strong. I'm looking to the right, trying to launch it right at the noodle. Wrist angles on the way back to close it. Arm rotation on the way through. Ball's moving. Game's hard enough. Wrist angles on the way back, arm rotation through. And those are three, which you can see those, three kind of just 5-yard little draws that started right, curve left. Now, I've been doing this for a decade. I shoot, around par, high 60s, low 70s. So I can do this with ease. If you're someone who shoots 90 or above, it's going to need to feel exaggerated, right? It's like day one of learning a new language. That's okay. If you have been struggling with the same problems over and over and over and over, it's because you're not fixing the correct things or you're not doing those things enough. When I have a lesson with someone, the most important thing is I can physically go in there and have them exaggerate more. Exaggerate more. So like grip stronger, close the face, twist the face, on close on the way back. So you're feeling when you go back, the toes twisting in front of the heel, twisting the club face closed, more up towards the sky, twist it closed, and then let your arms rotate on the way through. Isn't that too much timing? No, your timing stinks already because you're hitting it to the right. You need more face to path, more close it to have it curve back. Last point on this, because some people get nervous when they come see me when I tell them to use their arms and hands more. They say, well, I thought I was supposed to be all body, no arms and hands. Here's the reality. You need to learn how to use your arms and hands first, and then you can coordinate great body motions with it. You don't need great body motions to be able to shoot the 70s, but you need a face that's close to path. You need to compress the ball, okay? You need to be able to do these things. You could hit a fade and play that well, but your ability to be able to hit this draw tells me you won't struggle with weak right. That wasn't the last point, but the last point is this. The body motions, when you learn how to get great body motions, which everyone wants, which is great body rotation, so open your body and tilt, side bend. When you do those things and you shallow the shaft, all of those things serve to open the club face. Do it for yourself, hold a club up. The more you rotate your body and shallow the shaft, the face is going to be wide open. That's why, hey Eric, why do I need to close the face manually? Because your great body motions are going to open it. You have to offset that by closing it. Wrist angles, grip, arm rotation. That way when you add the two, boom, it's nice and square. I wanted to make this sort of an all-inclusive video because let's say I see 10 people, in a given week that I'm giving swing advice to. At least half were doing some version of this lesson, okay? So you guys need this lesson and you need to keep doing it over and over and over. It's like when you go to a trainer and you get a good diet plan and a good workout, you probably don't need that drastically different of that diet or workout for the next 5 years. Just keep getting better at those same things. Keep getting better at these same things. Again, if you're someone who shoots 80, 90 and above and want to get into the 70s, if you're already in the 70s, you already do this and draw it, that's a different game plan. That's a different video. Still make sure you're good at this. I learned how to draw it like this to get to the point where I shot in the 60s, right? So if you're upper 70s, you can still get better at this, but that's a different game plan. Ultimately, I can't say for sure exactly what you need, but I can give some ballpark averages based on where your score's at, right? And based on these things. If you want specific advice, come see me in person or go to cogornogolf.com for a fraction of the price. You can send in your swing videos. We're going to analyze those, pick your number 1 or 2 priorities, pick the drills you need to do, how many reps, how long to do them, all that stuff, so you can finally take your game, not like no joke take your game, really take your game to the next level, make huge strides like a lot of our members are. We'll put that down below. Obviously, as you join, you get like literally $4,000 worth of training videos in there. We're in the community every single day. It's an unbelievable deal that I hope you take advantage of. Any questions on how to hit the strong draw, get into the 70s, leave me a comment down below. I read through all those. Appreciate you guys watching as always.